Hey everybody, I'm joined here by Trinity Tran, an amazing woman who is the leader of Urban Partners LA. If you're watching at home, you probably have seen over the course of the past year me doing a lot of volunteer work. UPLA Urban Partners, we're based out of the church here in Koreatown, an amazing church. I want to hand it over to Trinity to explain a little bit about the background of the program prior to what had happened at COVID, and then how you guys might have pivoted once COVID hit and the challenge, you stepped up to meet it.
So we are here today at the First Unitarian Church in Los Angeles, and this church is actually really incredible. It has a really strong progressive history. It was like one of the only groups that sued the NSA for illegal wiretapping. It has a history of providing political refuge to prisoners who were fleeing from Latin America in the 1980s, prisoners fleeing from the Japanese internment camps. So this church has a real, incredible revolutionary history. So we are grateful to have them host Urban Partners Los Angeles. UPLA Urban Partners has been in existence for about over 23 years. I think it's 23 to 25 years right now, and it started around the time of the LA riots, right after in 1992, after what happened to Rodney King, and there was an insurrection in this neighborhood, which decimated areas around the church and increased the need for people to increase their need for resources in their community. So people from the First Unitarian Church stepped up and created this neighborhood program so that they could address basic needs like food insecurity and providing educational resources. So this is a really organically built organization that started over 2 decades ago. So we are, through our work here today, we are carrying on that legacy. So for the past 20 years, it's been a quiet neighborhood program. It served maybe a few hundred people every Saturday, about 20-something volunteers, and the food was just the food that was given to the program through our HopeNet distribution network, which is a network of faith-based programs. That food came from the LA Regional Food Bank, served this community, a few hundred people that worked like clockwork for over 2 decades. Then, March 2020, the pandemic hits, and the head of the executive director of the program, Rochelle McAdam, an incredible woman who's been running this for about 2 decades. She's 90 years old, so as an at-risk senior, she called me and she said, "I'm going to have to close the program." I said, I'm going to step up and I will figure it out. I will figure out how we will need to do this so we can keep this open, because the need was great before the pandemic, but the pandemic just would only exacerbate the need for food in this community, and we knew we had to do whatever it took to keep the doors open and keep this program moving. So we rallied. I reached out to Carlos and Michelle Anos, you, Roger, of course, and said, look, let's figure out how we're going to do this. Food distribution is going to have to grow. So from a 2-hour window to now a 6 to 7 hour window. So we had to, in a few weeks, scale up the program in terms of food, 3 times the amount of food, 3 times the amount of volunteers, 3 times the amount of overhead to bring in additional resources. So it was a full-scale operation that we had to build out, and we had, that first weekend, I think we had almost 50 volunteers come out with us. We had to figure out the logistics of the program have continuously evolved throughout the past almost year now. Next month, March 21st, is going to be our 1-year anniversary of this scaled out COVID-19 emergency food bank program. But it has been just an incredible show of support from community members, from volunteers. At least 50 to 60 volunteers show up every weekend continuously. They're here every weekend, starting at 6 a.m. When we get here at 6 a.m., there was already a line wrapped around the corner, and that really helps inspire us to come out, wake up early, even when it's dark out, even when it's cold, to serve the people, because the need's so great.
So I would like to build on that, because I think you've done such an incredible job, and the whole team, of building a really special kind of experience where volunteers want to come back, and it's not easy work. We wake up at the ass crack of dawn. It's backbreaking work. A lot of us, it's not uncommon to twist an ankle here, to bump yourself. I just got a bloody thumb earlier today. It's kind of rough, but you have somehow, to your credit and the team's credit, built an experience where people want to come back. So on any given week, the volunteers, the vast majority of them are week in, week out, regular volunteers, which is amazing. I'd like to ask you, what is the secret to creating a program that people want to be a part of? And for anybody out there who wants to organize a mutual aid thing, what tips would you have them in just creating what you guys created?
The amazing thing is that before we started building out the COVID-19 Emergency Food Bank and Urban Partners, a lot of us were already active in the community as activists, as advocates on various progressive causes, from affordable housing to environmental activists to public banking to healthcare for all. So we really tapped into our community of activists in Los Angeles and said, hey, let's build this together. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out how to do this together. And so it was really great camaraderie that we already had, that we were able to help kind of accelerate the start of this program. And it just started building from there. As we were coming. And early in the morning at 6 a.m., we started playing music. And you and I had a conversation one morning. We were like, well, if we're playing music on speakers, then why don't we just bring in DJs? Right. And of course, you, Roger, really are such a critical part of the experience. Of this food, the vibe, experience, just the overall atmosphere, the fun atmosphere of this is the musical talents that you have brought in to play live music, not for the people in line, but for the volunteers. We've been respectful of the operations that needs to happen out there to be able to feed the thousands of people who depend on it. But also, it's really important to energize the volunteers who get here with no pay. They get here selflessly at 6 in the morning. It's important to have an environment that kind of helps liven up their spirits, and the contribution that you've given to this program as our volunteer executive, or our volunteer music director, right?
It's so funny. Yeah, a little bit of context there. I think it was maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks that we had done this since COVID hit. We were pretty much doing it in silence that very first week or two. And then we brought in portable speakers on a Bluetooth, and then Trinity was like, yeah, we need a DJ that would liven it up. And I must admit, I thought she was joking, because I'm like, I had never even thought about having a DJ at a food bank.
And I didn't know
that was a thing.
I think we can hold claim as the only food bank with a DJ.
Yeah. If you don't have a DJ at your food bank, you're doing it wrong. I kid. But that being said, though, okay, for anybody on the outside looking at the program, any politicians, anybody who's thinking about donating or anything like that, what message would you like to convey to them as we approach the 1-year anniversary of this COVID pandemic? What should people out there be aware of? If you could just grab a politician and bring them down here, what would you tell them? What would you try to show?
At the end of the day, food banks exist as a sign of a broken system. And so we have to look at a much deeper level of how to fix some of the systemic changes in our society, the factors that lead to poverty, to lead to over 50 million people in this country living below the poverty line, struggling with food insecurity. Those are deep systemic problems that we need to address, because food, at the end of the day, is a fundamental human right. And it shouldn't be left to volunteer armies to have to feed millions of people across this country. And so it is a temporary fix. It's a crucial fix in the current system, in the current economic system that we live in. But it is, after all, a temporary fix. And it shouldn't be left to charity or to nonprofits or to volunteers to give people the fundamental right to food, to feed themselves and their families, that they need to be given basic social safety nets so that they don't have to stand in line for over 7 hours to receive what is essentially leftover food. So we have to look at those really important factors that lead to poverty, from housing, Medicare, which is the #1 contributing factor to debt. All of those elements are policy fixes that we need to address.
Well said. Thank you, Trinity. So I guess to recap, as much as we're having fun down here and the music and a lively group of volunteers, at the end of the day, we're fighting to make sure that nobody needs a food bank. So come join us, see what we're about, and join the movement for greater economic justice.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
Take care.
Thank you, Blair, for filming.
Yeah, right on.